Act 4, Scene 2 opens in Fife, in Macduff's castle. Enter Lady Macduff, her son, and Ross. This is the only scene in which Lady Macduff appears, but she fulfills a number of important dramatic functions, the first of which being to provide a foil for Lady Macbeth. A foil is a device used by a writer where one character provides a contrast to another, usually major character, in order to highlight something about them, such as their appearance, their personality, or their morals. Remember that one of Banquo's dramatic functions is to provide a foil for Macbeth, to highlight not only Macbeth's affinity with the evilness of the witches, but also his ambition when faced with seemingly advantageous prophecies. As the only two human females in the play, note how Shakespeare will present Lady Macduff as a stark contrast to Macbeth's queen. The scene begins in medias res, or in the middle of a conversation. It's clear that Ross has just informed Lady Macduff that her husband is gone to England, as she seeks further clarification as to why he felt it necessary to go off in the first place. Her question implies that she suspects he has done something treasonous. What had he done to make him fly the land? Ross is not willing to go into details. You must have patience, madam. Although it is not clear if this is because he wants to protect her, or if it is because at the time it was deemed neither fitting nor profitable to discuss matters of state with females, as their place in society remained limited to the domestic sphere. Don't forget that Lady Macbeth is an anomaly in that she is not typical of women of the time, and that her proactive meddling and ambition would have been seen as aberrant and unfeminine by the contemporary audience. Lady Macduff serves to remind us of this. Although Lady Macduff is unwilling to be fobbed off by Ross and stands up to him, she nevertheless does so with a dignity that is quite lacking in Lady Macbeth. She challenges her need for patience as she counters that he had none. His flight was madness. When our actions do not, our fears do make us traitors. In other words, even though we have done nothing treacherous, our running away in fear is enough to make us so. Although Ross is still unwilling to give her any further details, he is also loath to allow his ally to be maligned in such a way, telling her, "You know not whether it was his wisdom or his fear." Lady Macduff's incredulity that his actions could in any way be construed as wise is apparent from the two rhetorical questions, one after the other, that forcefully insinuate that what he has done actually smacks of cowardice. Appearing as it does that he has abandoned his place as the head of a noble household in order to save himself, leaving his wife, children, and entitlements vulnerable and unprotected. Wisdom to leave his wife, to leave his babes, his mansion and his titles in a place from whence himself does fly. The only conclusion she can draw, therefore, is that he loves us not, arguing that he lacks kindness. He wants the natural touch. Note how her criticism of her husband is the antithesis of Lady Macbeth's criticism of her own husband, when she deplored how he was too full of the milk of human kindness. These feelings, she argues angrily, are instinctive for even the smallest and most vulnerable of female creatures, who will take on the most formidable of foes to protect their family. For the poor wren, the most diminutive of birds will fight, her young ones in the nest, against the owl. She concludes by saying that his actions, which fly in the face of reason, are indicative of fear rather than wisdom or love. Ross tells Lady Macduff to school herself, or in other words, to get her anger under control. He reassures her that Macduff is noble, wise, judicious, and best knows the fits of the season, or the moods of the times. In an attempt to divert her anger away from her husband onto, instead, the uncertain circumstances in which they find themselves, he somewhat cryptically bemoans the fact that these cruel times have created such confusion that men are forced to act in uncharacteristic ways. that fear makes them believe that rumours are truth, and it is as though they are floating upon a wild and violent sea, which tosses them this way and that, but doesn't get them anywhere. He bids her farewell, reassuring her that it shall not be long, but I'll be here again, and that hopefully the situation will soon improve. Lady Macduff's only response to this is to switch her attention towards her son, saying, "Fathered he is, yet he is fatherless." Ross quickly excuses himself, saying that he needs to leave before he embarrasses himself in front of them by crying. There now follows an episode of tenderness between Lady Macduff and her son, as she tries to explain a situation which she does not entirely understand herself to him. Note how Shakespeare structures the scene in this way to heighten the sense of pathos, shock, and tragedy when the murderers burst in to brutally murder two innocent characters, one of them a child, only a few lines later on, as per Macbeth's instructions. The dialogue switches from blank verse to prose here to reflect the intimate and informal nature of their conversation, as they attempt to comfort one another with a witty back and forth of questions and answers. She point-blank tells him that your father's dead, perhaps meaning rather that he's as good as dead, either because he will be executed as a traitor, or that he is effectively dead to them for all the good he will be able to do them. He therefore asks him what he means to do now in order to live. He bravely says that he intends to survive as birds do, i.e. he will get by with what he is able to forage. His mother counters this by taking his simile and transforming it into a metaphor, arguing, "Poor bird, thou'dst never fear the net, nor lime, the pitfall, nor the gin." With her listing of the different methods for catching birds, such as nets, sticky lime on tree branches, covered holes in the ground, and snares, she shows that she fears his confidence is misplaced, as danger is all around them. Not to be outdone, however, he bats this away with the argument that traps are not set for poor birds such as he has been characterised by her. Anyway, he says, "My father is not dead, for all you're saying." The two continue to go back and forth until the subject of loyalty and treachery are reintroduced, themes which will be revisited in the next scene. The way her son repeatedly asks for clarification to the answers to his questions is characteristic of the natural inquisitiveness of young children, and serves to enhance the tenderness of this scene, highlighting as it does Lady Macduff's maternal love and the innocent, straightforward logic of her son. Note how this contrasts not only with her cynical manipulation, but also with the lack of maternal feeling shown by Lady Macbeth in Act 1, Scene 7, when she accuses her own husband of treachery and challenges him to prove his loyalty to her. "I have given suck, and know how tender 'tis to love the babe that milks me. I would, while it was smiling in my face, have plucked my nipple from his boneless gums and dashed the brains out, had I so sworn as you have done to this." Lady Macduff's son asks her, "Was my father a traitor, mother?" When she replies in the affirmative, he asks her, "What is a traitor?" A traitor, she says, is one that swears or takes an oath and lies. Presumably she is thinking here of the oath that he took on their wedding day to love and protect her, and which she feels he has betrayed. He asks her if that is true for all men who do so. "Yes," she says, "every one that does so is a traitor and must be hanged." He persists, "And must they all be hanged that swear and lie?" "Every one," she confirms. "But who must hang them?" he asks. "Why, the honest men," is the response. "In that case, then," he says, "the liars and swearers are fools, for there are liars and swearers enough to beat the honest men and hang them up." There's no further arguing with this simple, childish logic, and Lady Macduff stops trying, returning the conversation to the subject of his absent father. "Now God help thee, poor monkey, but how wilt thou do for a father?" Noticing that she is not crying, there are two possible conclusions to be arrived at. If he were dead, you'd weep for him. If you would not, it were a good sign that I should have a new father. In other words, either he's not dead at all, or he is, but the fact that she doesn't want to cry for him means that he'll be getting a new father soon anyway. Their conversation is abruptly interrupted by the arrival of a messenger who shatters the intimate coziness of the scene to let them know the harsh reality of their situation. He informs them that their lives are in immediate danger and that they should leave the castle forthwith. He apologises for the savage nature of his warning, but there is a far worse fell or deadly cruelty which is breathing down her neck. To fright you thus, methinks I am too savage. To do worse to you were fell cruelty, which is too nigh your person. Lady Macduff is bewildered. She doesn't know where she should go. She is innocent, but she admits that this is a futile defence because the world is a topsy-turvy place, where evil acts are often praised, while good acts are deemed dangerous madness. I am in this earthly world where to do harm is often laudable, to do good sometime accounted dangerous folly. Why then, alas, do I put up that womanly defence to say I have done no harm? The murderers burst in, one of them demanding to know Macduff's whereabouts. Lady Macduff is dignified, courageous and loyal to her husband to the very end, for all her harsh and angry words directed towards him earlier on in the scene. As she addresses the murderer with undisguised contempt, "I hope in no place so unsanctified where such as thou mayst find him." Her son shows a similar loyalty and courage, defending his father's honour to the end as he calls the murderer who described him as a traitor, a liar and a shag-haired villain. The murderer kills him for his impertinence, and Lady Macduff exits, crying "Murder!" pursued by murderers with her son, presumably to meet her fate off stage. It's interesting to note that neither of the two human female characters are given valuable stage time by Shakespeare for their deaths. The focus is really on the male characters in this play. Lady Macduff, who only appears in one scene, serves a number of straightforward dramatic functions. To provide a foil to Lady Macbeth, to show the depravity to which Macbeth has descended, and to furnish Macduff with a personal reason to want Macbeth dead. Lady Macbeth's own final dramatic function is her sleepwalking scene in Act V, Scene 1, where the audience is treated to an exhibition of the horrific consequences of a guilty conscience brought on by regicide. Her death reduced to a mere footnote in Act V, Scene 5, when Macbeth is informed of her suicide. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments section below and I'll do my best to answer them. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos on English language topics and exam techniques and English literature texts.